How's it going, everyone? My name is Dylan Walker for Yahoo Esports. I've got Scott Mercer here from the Overwatch team. I want to ask you some questions about competitive play. So,
love to talk about it.
Okay, cool. So what was going on in beta? What wasn't working about the competitive system?
The one thing that we got a lot of feedback from our players was it didn't feel like it didn't feel actually competitive enough. It felt much more like a progression system. People were like, I really just want to know, like, how good am I? Like, you know, like, how do I line up against all these other players? And that wasn't always clear. You might have someone who's just, you know, played more, gotten to higher ranks, and someone who's actually more skilled, but they just hadn't, like, played as much. So the newer system, it's really just about figuring out, like, hey, what is your skill rating? What does the system think in terms of, like, you know, how good are you? And that's the number that we've really sort of like predominantly displayed, that skill rating number, and that's something you can immediately compare to other people, you know, in your game. We'll eventually have like a leaderboard for that.
Could you briefly describe just like the current system for those who might not be familiar with it?
Sure. So you'll start playing competitive, and then you play 10 placement matches, and that's a point where the system is really trying to like hone in on exactly, like, again, how good are you? Depending upon, like, did you win or lose like those 10 matches? When you play those matches, who were you playing against? So if you get matched up against someone who's way better and you win, it jumps up your skill rating because it goes like, oh, you played someone awesome. It's like, if you beat them, you must be awesome too. And then after those 10 placement matches, you're given a skill rating, and that skill rating number is something that that's that sort of like point of comparison where you look at it and say, like, hey, exactly how good am I, especially compared to the other people that I play with.
So when you start this like placement system, are you given like a base MMR or ELO?
Yeah, there's for our initial like season, there was basically sort of a base like MMR. In the future, as we do more seasons, we'll look at like sort of your previous
where you were
competitive
in the last
MMR,
season, where
and
you
then
peaked in stuff like that.
We'll look at like that kind of data.
What goes into determining someone's rank? I mean, what the factors there? Is it my accuracy? Is it how I do on, if I do well on 5 different heroes and poorly on only 2?
So I mean, so the biggest thing is, I mean, when we talk about like, hey, how much did my skill rating go up or down after a match? I mean, the biggest thing is just, did you win or not? And there's also sort of the quality of the win in terms of like, did you win against a better team, or did you win against someone who you were expected to beat? Because a lot of times players will like, oh, I didn't really get that much skill rating, and it's like, well, actually, you know, the system determined that, you know, it's like you were supposed to win that match. And if you're supposed to win a match and you win, it's like, well, what does that really say about your skill? And, you know, you get a little bit of skill rating there because it does say it's like, hey, you won. Your individual performance also does matter, and the things for there is we actually look at a ton of different things. There's not like one or two like particular stats we're looking at. We're looking at different performance in terms of like how well you're handling your objectives, how, you know, the support characters. You know, we don't compare like the play of like a Genji to someone who's like someone who's playing as Mercy.
They each have their own like.
They each have their own sort of like different like set of like sort of bars, benchmarks that they can go in. So they're really being compared to like, well, how are you playing as Mercy? How are you playing as Zenyatta? How are you playing as Reinhardt? And that factors into the system as well.
Awesome. So can you tell me about some of the rewards? I know that it's like important to have these incentives. In the
Sure. So every time you win a game of competitive play, you earn 1 currency. After you've earned 300 of those, you can purchase golden guns for any of the heroes you want to. So like with 300 competitive tokens, you earn the golden guns for 1 hero.
Okay.
But it's also for all the skins for that hero as well.
Oh, okay.
They're a really nice reward for someone who's played a lot of competitive. And at the end of the season, we also give another like chunk of competitive tokens based upon your highest skill rating for that season.
So I want to talk about play the game. It's like, what I noticed about it is that it's the easiest, most genius marketing tool of all time. It goes straight to Reddit, straight to Twitter.
Right.
But I want to know like what determines play the game, because it's not always the most kills. Sometimes it's big, you know, Zenyatta plays or Mercy plays. Well,
one thing what we're really trying to capture is, again, I mean, it's sort of in the name, that play of the game, and that's not always killing a bunch of people. Like, there are really impactful moments that a tank could have, a support could have, and those aren't easily captured in terms of just like, hey, I just killed 5 guys in, you know, a small window of time. We're definitely like looking into that, into like how to improve that, how to capture those like really awesome moments, because as you noted, like it's something where people really enjoy seeing.
I know that we've taken a casual game here and kind of introduced a new dynamic with it being competitive and having like a more serious. You know, we have voice comms in this game, people talking to each other, and so there's been a little bit of a spur in the community about toxicity. Is there anything you're going to do in the future to like address this?
First of all, I think one of the great things about competitive play is that you are seeing a whole lot more communication, but most of that is all like super positive. It's team members trying to be part of a team. Is part of like more communication, is that like naturally like mean that there's a little bit more toxicity? Sure, it's the internet.
Right.
But there's always options in terms of like, hey, if someone's being really, really obnoxious, you can report them, you know, mute them. We have like those kinds of things. And if it continues to be an issue in the future, there's other ways we can potentially address that in the future. We'll see. It's something we are keeping a pretty tight eye on.
It's been great talking to you about competitive. Thanks for explaining it to me a little bit more. For everybody else, this is Yahoo Esports.